live, and I am joined by my friend DeShaun Tate. How are you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm outstanding. I've been praying for a little bit more to do. A little bit more basketball is always good, especially with what I call that football stuff, all the draft stuff
Right.
going on. Use a little bit more basketball conversation. I'm just really happy to be a part of the podcast with you.
I appreciate it. Hey, you have your own show as well, so please, before we get started, let the people know where they can hear you, social media handles, your show, all that good stuff.
Oh, for sure. Appreciate that. At Tate's Take Hoops on Instagram as well as on Twitter. I'm a big retweeter, maybe not nearly as much original content, especially when there's not as much basketball going on. The podcast itself, entitled Tate's Take, find that anywhere that you find your favorite podcast: Spotify, Red Circle, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It is nothing less than 110% all basketball. I tell people all the time, if it's 94 feet long, 50 feet wide, 22 feet and 1 1/4 inches out on the perimeter, and 10 feet high on the rim. We do it all, man. On the high school level, the amateur level, collegiate level, NBA. If it's wheelchair basketball, you name it, we're doing it. We're talking about it, all hoops, man. So not really a lot of bias, conversation, but just a ton of informative information, very educational.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, this will certainly be a hoops podcast right here. You're wearing the March Madness hat. I see it. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic that's going on, we missed out on that opportunity, which is very unfortunate. But there's still been some college hoop news, because now you get guys like, he's not in college. He was out of high school, but Jalen Green. And he's like, hey, I'm going to the G League. You get some of these other top recruits saying, I'm going to the G League. So as someone that is heavy into basketball, obviously, someone that's heavy into college basketball, do you think, and I've picked a few brains on this and I get different takes, do you think this is a new trend where we're starting to see top recruits going forward choosing the G League over collegiate basketball?
Yeah, first and foremost, I wore the hat not only because I love March Madness. That's just kind of my go-to, and because I'm missing it so much, but because I haven't had a haircut. Other than
that too, yeah.
Other than that, I can definitely see, it trending in that direction. And I know that may raise some red flags in regards to some concerns of what college basketball may end up looking like in the near future. But, for guys like, Isaiah Todd and Jalen Green, give credit, man. I mean, $500K, $500,000 is obviously really good for an opportunity to play against professionals, play on the professional level. Against guys who are really, really hungry, have families of their own. I mean, this is a business, at the end of the day, this isn't 2K, this is the business of basketball. And so I think that it gives those guys a good opportunity to kind of break into learning exactly what that is about, and then even more so, maybe not as popular for the international level, which I know that Isaiah Todd was definitely looking at after decommitting from Michigan. But, with the pandemic and everything else going on, and I don't know this to be for sure, but I can only imagine, this obviously isn't the time to be trying to look towards going overseas with all the stuff that's going on. Again, not knowing exactly how much of, that part of the decision had anything to do with that decision. But it's something I can definitely see. I mean, the other part of it is I just saw what I think yesterday or day before yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, Greg Brown, who's originally from Texas, a top 10 recruit in the class of 2020, opting out of six-figure deal from the G League and deciding to go to Texas, which I still love, and love that idea that players are still willing to turn down money to go play college basketball for no money. So, that's just something that I'll always cherish. I'll always love and enjoy. But, I'm somewhat of a biased college basketball fan over the professional level right away. So I'm not mad at the guys for getting their money and taking care of their families either.
Certainly. Yeah, certainly. Now, there's a couple things I want to kind of hit on, or at least look at, is you made some really interesting points. The first thing that stands out to me is there is still value in collegiate ball. Like, this is the one thing I think people are kind of glossing over. It's painted in such a bad light sometimes. And it's like, you can't tell me it's not a benefit to be coached by Coach K, by like
Mhm.
some of these like elite coaches, and you're on national TV. And I mean, a lot of these people's brands grow from college basketball. Now, again, that's not to throw shade at the G League, but to act like there's no value, any benefit from going and playing college ball, I think is outrageous.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, you get that experience, especially for, 5-star guys and even 4-star recruits
Right.
having that opportunity to be coached under a Coach K, a Bill Self, a Roy Williams, a Tom Izzo, a John, Jim Boeheim, that
Right.
is, Coach Cal, all of these guys. It does. And even in some cases, I guess, coming up later on this year at Iona, you get your Rick Pitino back. So it doesn't even have to be 4 and 5-star players that are going to be coached under some of the best Hall of Fame coaches and things like that. But it definitely does give, add a different dimension and something a little bit different too. And again, not every kid should be pressed and in a rush to grow up and learn what business is about. I mean, we have the rest of our lives at 17, 18,
Right.
19 years old to work, because that's exactly what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So there's nothing wrong with going on campus, being the big man on campus, and enjoy college basketball for not nothing else than, for a one season, or even for a semester, since we're talking about just for one season, more so a semester.
Right. And I agree with you. And then to add to that, would you say, to like kind of play devil's advocate, do you think LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton are the ones that kind of paved the way? So it's like, whether you choose the collegiate route, and that has tons of benefits, like we just talked about. But like I said, to play devil's advocate, you can go to the G League. You're playing against probably better competition, and then you're making money. And although there's pros and cons to both, do you think players coming up out of high school look at LaMelo, they look at RJ Hampton, and they're like, wow, they did things differently. They didn't necessarily go to the G League, but they went overseas. And now it's like you have Jalen Green and other people like, maybe college isn't the number one option. Maybe I can go to the G League. Maybe I can go overseas. Do you think LaMelo and RJ, although didn't choose the G League, kind of were big influences on these decisions?
Potentially, I think that, you definitely have to consider that after guys had the opportunity to see, well, you know what, let's see how those guys did. I think there were some people
Right.
who are kind of considering G League and international, maybe perhaps anyway, but just to kind of sit back and say, you know what, I'm coming in the year after LaMelo and RJ, or 2 years after. Let's see what their success story looks like. Let's see
Right.
if that kind of help catapult their draft status, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. So from that standpoint, I like to think that it definitely did help. And they weren't necessarily the first ones to do it. I mean, we could think back to Brandon Jennings and
That's
Emmanuel
true.
Moody, and I think that there's a couple other guys as well that have had some success as well. But I still think that there's certain pieces that you won't get the way that you will out of college basketball. I mean, granted, you're playing, against guys that are older, they're experienced, they are professional basketball players. And
Right.
while I respect that, and I think that that is outstanding for them, even especially having the opportunity to get paid, I would be willing to, you know, I personally would be willing to, or interested in seeing if they would consider that avenue over college, if the G League and or international play was not paying them. How much would it interest them at that point? So again, I mean, it is paying the players. So
Yeah.
that obviously has a big piece of it. And again, I'm not here, we're not here to judge whose family is or is not in the position to turn down money like that. Not everybody
Right.
comes from a Cole Anthony type family where their dad, played in the NBA as a veteran for all of these years. So I think that there are some interesting pieces to it. But, however, one thing that definitely does help playing on the international level, is coming in the year or 2 or 3 after Luka Doncic, where that is the most recent success story of a guy
Yeah.
who's been international on a pro level since probably 15 or 16 years old. However, let's not forget that there's a lot of guys that play internationally. While you do have a lot of those success stories, there are a lot of guys that played on the international level that come over to the NBA and they don't pan out. You just don't hear about them nearly as often.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Now, I want to shift gears to this. So let's talk about a success story from college. I'm going to think about of a Michigan State kind of guy like Draymond Green, who really learned himself. He's always talked about how he's won on all levels, high school. Then you look at the collegiate level, and now you look in the NBA. Someone who has that character built is a lot from Michigan State. That's who Draymond is, and that's how he learned who he was. So he had this recent interview, and he's talking to Maverick Carter. He was speaking to a couple people, and it's like one of the things he said was, I feel like Kevin Durant should have been up front, the elephant in the room. Are you staying? Or are you going? And he was like, because that kind of trickled down. Now, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Draymond Green, covering the Magic, and I talked to him, and he's such a straight up dude. He may not give you the answer you want. He may give you the answer you want, but it's truly how he feels. He's a straight up dude, very smart. And I actually agree with him here. And here's why, because I'm not here to judge people and their decisions. Like you said, like everyone has their reasons for doing everything. Kevin Durant chose the Golden State Warriors. It's a smart move. He won rings. That's his decision. It's done. It's over with. But I kind of agree with what Draymond's saying, because when you look at the reports, it's like Kevin Durant kind of knew he was out of there. And then, of course, the argument didn't make it better. But he kind of had that idea. Do you think it would have been helpful if Kevin Durant would have said, listen, guys, yeah, this is my last year. If he did know his decision, let's go out with a bang. And do you think that would have cleared up any of the issues, all the rumors going on? Because at least the locker room would have been intact and on the same page.
I mean, potentially. I think at that point you have to kind of on the outside looking in, as we all are right now, trying to look at things, with a glass half full and very optimistic and from a positive standpoint, or even saying what we would do in that position.
Right.
But there's so many things between us on the level that we are versus him on the level that he is that maybe, he could have done differently. I think we've all been in a position in our personal lives, regardless of whether it's sports related or just life related, that we would have done things a little bit different, had we known then what we know now. And maybe even some of that stuff is, maybe he was trying to protect certain things or didn't want to break up the chemistry from chasing a championship, or, I mean, those are just really a lot of things that we don't really know. Again, Draymond is straight up dude. He feels like, I've been around dude a few times, and he's a straight up dude, but not everybody works the same way. And I think that's the unique thing about what we're looking at. Forget about who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes it's just about learning and applying to our own personal lives. And sometimes that we have to embrace the fact that we're all created so differently, and we're all going to handle situations differently. We've all made decisions that people, said I would have handled that differently. People have made decisions in their lives that we said we would have handled those differently. But I think that's the unique part about being different people. And I think that, that is something that makes the NBA right now as interesting as it is. That's not the first time people have criticized Kevin Durant for a decision that he made. And he's a different guy too, and had the opportunity to meet and talk to him a little bit as well, doing some reporting for the Atlanta Hawks a year ago. And so, I will say enough to say that let's just all appreciate how different we are as people. And sometimes it's really hard for us, especially on the outside looking in, to, judge somebody based on the decisions they made, because we feel like we would have done it differently, but we're not walking in those shoes.
DeShaun Tate, words of wisdom. I could not agree more. That was a great way to approach that one. That's wisdom right there. You're dropping knowledge. One of the things that they also talked about was Steph Curry's defense got brought up, right? So Maverick Carter's like, hey, I would drop some buckets on Steph Curry. I don't know the exact verbiage. I don't know if he said like 18 or 20 points. Whatever the case was, he's saying Steph doesn't play defense. And I always hear this, and it makes me like kind of chuckle, and I take a step back, and I'm like, okay. But here's the thing, DeShaun. What point guard plays defense nowadays? And it's like, there's a couple that do. Don't get me wrong. You look at the Chris Pauls, the Sextons. There's definitely guys that can lock down. But today's NBA is not about defense. It's not necessarily about toughness anymore. It's a changed game. And the game has changed primarily because of guys like Steph Curry. He is the poster boy of the threes, of just the fluid motion, the way the game's played now. And one of the things I say is I think Steph Curry, in my opinion, is the second greatest point guard of all time. Now, that's a debate of its own. That's just what I feel. Greatest shooter ever, 3 rings, first ever unanimous MVP, changed the game. his impact, I believe, is on a Mount Rushmore. Like if you had a Mount Rushmore of players that impacted the league, like you think of the Jordans making it global, you think of Bird, Magic reviving the NBA, you think of Allen Iverson bringing the culture to it. I think of Steph Curry and how he changed the game. Why does he seem like he gets such disrespect from other people, other players? Is it because he's not 6'8" and 260 like LeBron? Why does he get this type of disrespect all the time?
I don't know. I joke with people about that all the time. I'm a huge advocate for light-skinned guys, man. That's just the way that I roll. So I'm always teasing people, tell them hashtag LSU, light skin United. And I don't know how much that has anything to do with anything, but I don't know the answer to that. I think that the easy answer for that is probably the fact that he's so good. He's not the only one that's going to get that kind of disrespect. I think that the more that we evolve into social media, the more and more the next guy who's great is going to be criticized like that. But make no mistake about it. A lot of people felt the same way about, Michael Jordan, and a lot of people, I was hearing at one point in time, we're calling Magic Johnson Tragic Johnson for many different reasons. Some of it didn't even have anything to do with basketball. Kobe Bryant, I mean, people just absolutely despised, it seems like, despised of Kobe Bryant until the day that he passed away. And then all of a sudden things miraculously changed all of a sudden, however that works. And then, people are still, barking up a tree against so many other guys. You don't even have to necessarily be great. I mean, you hear a lot about, Draymond Green right now and talk about what kind of how he's just a glorified role player and this and that and overpaid, and people don't like the way he runs his mouth and so on and so forth. So, I mean, there's so many different elements to this and so many different, layers to the onion. But as far as Steph Curry goes, I mean, you sit back and you think, like you said, guys that have literally changed the game. I mean, when I was growing up, people was in love with Michael Jordan. We're playing pickup basketball, going to the hole with the tongue out like we're Mike, because everybody wanted to be that. And then you turn around, fade away, and you yell Kobe, because Kobe was the thing. Everybody wanted to do the crossover like the Allen Iverson. Now the kids are looking up to Steph Curry, and a lot of people don't even know how to shoot free throws or make layups or anything else, but they can shoot from like 40 or 50 feet out. So, it's one of those things. I think anybody that brings a different element to the game, but ultimately there's two things. One of them is the fact that he's a winner. He's a proven winner. And he just appears to really be unstoppable. So anytime that they're playing in the finals, and Steph Curry gets locked up or whatever, people are always going to pinpoint that because of how good you always see him perform. And the second thing is I'm still gonna stick to the light skin thing, man. I'm always gonna stick to that. That's always gonna be my second go.
Okay, hold it down there. I support you. So one of the bright things, like kind of the positive outlooks of everything this pandemic is because so many people are going through some tragic things right now, whether it's health or financially. So one of the things I've noticed is this documentary has had such a positive influence on the world. And it's like one thing I've noticed, there's been so much negative energy. And do you believe what this person says? Do you believe this news channel? Do you believe this news channel? And it's like the one thing I feel like everyone can agree on is how impactful this documentary has been. And it's like, it's been amazing. Whether you love Jordan, you didn't like Jordan because you were a Knicks fan, it's just been an amazing thing to look at. And I think this is the most impactful documentary, sports documentary we've ever experienced. Now, like O.J. Simpson's obviously up there, but as far as like the timing of everything, it's kind of like the NFL draft. I think this is the most impactful draft because of the timing. Do you think how like to you, what has this documentary meant to you and just to basketball culture?
I mean, it's meant a lot to me, especially on a personal level outside of a professional level. I'd say more so, though, because I'm a major hoops head. But to be able to learn, and I just hope that people really embrace Michael Jordan. One thing that I hate that's happening, which I probably should have known in a roundabout way.
I know what you're going to say.
Is the LeBron comparison and all of this type of stuff. But that was expected. I mean, and I said that I was never going to have this conversation with people about the greatest of all time, because not only is Michael Jordan it, but if he wasn't it, then why, when people have the conversations about greatest of all time, he's the first person whose name comes up. There's a reason behind why his his uniform, so to speak, I guess, quote unquote, is retired in Miami, a place that he never played in that arena. And in addition to that, there's a reason behind why LeBron James wears 23. Like, he didn't just,
Yeah.
up with the number. But and I just hope that the younger generation appreciates Michael, because it'll help them appreciate the players that they follow now and watch and was actually living to be able to see. Appreciate those guys even more, because they were the ones that were looking up, to Michael Jordan as the greatest of all time. But as far as the documentary in general as a whole, I mean, I'm loving bit of it, not only just because there's really not a whole lot of other stuff to watch, but also because it was in some of the prime years of my life. I mean, I'm 35, I'll be 36, this August, but that's when I fell in love with the game of basketball. He's the greatest player of all time, but he's not my favorite player of all time. And so it's just something that I really hope people embrace and appreciate, because if you're watching this thing with your Lakers colored blinders on, or your Pistons colored glasses on, or whatever, you're never going to be able to love and appreciate exactly who Michael Jordan was as a competitor, more so than just his skill set.
Yeah, I couldn't have worded that any better. I just think, now I'm a LeBron guy, but if people, I understand most people think Jordan, and I'm like, yeah, you're not crazy, because Jordan, obviously, but like you said, one thing I made sure I didn't take part in is the LeBron Jordan debate. It's like, why can't we just appreciate each other's greatness in their own way? Like you said, forget about LeBron, forget about any other player. Just focus on Jordan. Just focus on the journey that he had to go through. Appreciate what he's had to overcome. Like, a lot of people just think, oh, he just won all the time, it was easy, because it wasn't. When you watch this documentary, you're like, man, the front office was dysfunctional. He had teammates arguing with people. Like, it was not easy. And he went to a culture that wasn't about winning, and he turned it into winning. Like, it's been an amazing thing to see. Now, for you, is there anything when you watch this documentary, is there anything that jumps out to you that you may not have known? Anything that surprises you?
Yeah, well, so far, I mean, we've only seen 2 episodes, and while there was a lot in there, I wasn't exactly certain that was going to be the last year of the Chicago Bulls as we know it, that 98 season. I wasn't positive of all of that. I didn't know that it had gotten, I mean, I've heard rumors swirling, but I wasn't so sure that it was as serious as this documentary is making it out to be. And I think that that's totally awesome the way that it is, because, that was arguably the greatest team of all time. I know that, regardless of the record, and Golden State Warriors was obviously one of them as well. But it just makes you appreciate the greatness, because 82 games is a very long time.
Yes.
Even more so, you have playoffs in there, and ask anybody, especially somebody like a Coach Calipari. It's not easy being able to manage all of the egos, and the alter egos, and the macho, and the everything that comes along, with having those types of players, and some feeling their own ways about contracts, and then Dennis Rodman, his own person in general. And then everybody's kind of got their own motives, behind it. And then, of course, you got Michael, and Michael isn't necessarily the most humbling guy in the world either.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I'm just, I'm just thankful that we can see some of this behind the scenes footage, things that we had never seen before, because it could easily not be a thing that we have had access to. But we do have that access, and I'm thankful, I'm grateful, I'm overly appreciative that we have that opportunity. And just an FYI, some of those people that feel like someone else the better than the greatest of all time. Most of those people, you look down at their shoes and they're probably wearing Jordans themselves.
Yeah, Jordan certainly has better shoes. That's for sure. The last thing I want to throw at you is an off-script thing. It's something that I've kind of created. I like creating just different content. Like I've done Marvel characters to NBA players. I've done Star Wars characters to NBA players. I've even done rap artists to NBA players. And I just added another one. So far on the list, I had Lil Wayne as LeBron because he's arguably the greatest of all time. He gets compared to all the greats all the time. I had Drake as, I think, Steph Curry, and some people think LeBron should be Drake, but I said Steph because of the way he changed the game. He tracks multiple crowds. I did Young Thug as James Harden because he has such a unique flow. Like Young Thug has his own flow, and some people thought it was questionable at first if he was going to succeed, and then all of a sudden it worked, and okay, the guy is legit. Young Thug's an all-timer. One of the guys I did DaBaby and Luca. Like DaBaby is one of the newest rap artists out right now who say has the same flow. We're questioning if he's going to be an all-timer or if he's going to be, okay, it was just a trend. Looks like Luca is going to be an all-timer. So anyway, the guy I just added was Trae Young. And I did Trae Young as Roddy Ricch because I just heard this song by Roddy Ricch today. My friend showed me. I'm like, man, this guy is literally on a roll. And I'm like, that's who it is. It's Trae Young because we've seen this flow before that Roddy Ricch has. Like Trae Young, we've seen it in Steph Curry. But he's doing it in his own way, and he's doing it on a record pace. He's breaking like records as year goes by. That's Roddy Ricch. Roddy Ricch is setting records. You look at the box; he's setting records. Am I crazy for saying Roddy Ricch and Trae Young as a comparison there?
Well, first of all, I see what you did there between the Drake and Steph Curry thing because they're both light skins. So
I'm helping you here. I'm helping you.
I see we're kind of thinking alike. We're just two light skins, but just one lighter than the other.
There you go.
And I'll be honest with you, and I know that is something that is beyond me.
Okay.
Because I'm not really familiar with Roddy Ricch. So
really,
I'm not that dude. Now that we've done this podcast, I'll take a listen. I'll
check
it
out. Please.
Me and Trae Young got a decent relationship as well, so I'll definitely like his try to get some of his input on your comparison because I'm sure that he's a lot. I'm not the hip guy. I'm 35.
Yeah, please ask him.
I'm 35, 36, but I wear my t-shirt tucked into my jogging pants and my sweatpants like I'm an old grandpa. So I'm that dude.
So you're the Tupac and Biggie kind of guy.
I'm the Tupac dude. I am the Tupac Michael Jordan comparison guy.
Okay.
But I will do you this much as a fave, and I'll go and I'll listen to some Roddy Ricch. Never heard of him in my life.
Okay. Time out. Real quick before I let you go. Again, DeShaun Tate, I appreciate you joining me. I've interviewed Trae Young. I love Trae Young. He's a great guy. Yeah, obviously he's a phenomenal player, but I was just so impressed by his presence in the locker room because he's like my age. I'm 22 years old, and he is the leader of a locker room at that age, and you could tell people respect him. And he's like, I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, he's gonna be a superstar. And I'm like, so I'm listening to this song. Please listen. I'm sure you've probably heard of one of his songs. You just don't know it's him because when you hear the box, it's like the song of the year, goes platinum. Just take a listen, and you'll be like, okay. I'm like, you may not like him right away, but he's here to stay. I'm letting you know he's here to stay like Trae is.
Well, duly noted. I'll certainly keep that in mind, and I'm gonna have to go check out some of this Roddy Ricch guy. I know who Rowdy Piper is. I know who that is. But I'm not familiar with the young, with the new generation guys. I'm not opposed to it.
Right.
I can't say that I know a whole lot at all.
Okay, well, fair enough. I appreciate you joining. Before I let you go, please plug away again where people can find you on social media, your show, all that good stuff.
No doubt. At Tate's Take Hoops on social media. TATESTAKEHOOPS. Hashtag where basketball lives. Working on some more podcasting stuff. The Basketball Savants, which is one of my own. Working on that with a good friend of mine, Mike Dyson. I call him Iron Mike Dyson. Me and this dude together, it is a riot. You got to buckle up your seatbelt for that because it gets a little raunchy, but it's a lot of fun, very educational. And Tate's Take the Podcast, very educational as well. Find that anywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Red Circle, Google Podcasts, the whole nine. And gonna be working on some new projects and some new things, just getting through this whole quarantine thing. I'm letting everybody else go with their going live, doing all
Yeah.
their one-on-one interviews and everything else. I'm just kind of sitting mine on the back burner a little bit until everybody kind of uses their content and their material so I can break open with some of mine.
I love it. Well, I support you. I'll be tuning in, and I really appreciate you giving me your time and coming on my show.
Man, dude, I had an outstanding time. You do such a wonderful job. I appreciate you for coming on. I'll have to get you on mine one of these days so we can kind of shoot the breeze a little bit so it doesn't get too lost in the sauce. But I'm overly thankful, appreciative of you bringing me on and just just everything in general, man. I'm really, really thankful for that. I really needed this, and thanks